Yo, Simon!
Yeah?
Where's Guide?
What guide?
DC Guide, bruh! Hurry it up, it's Friday already!
I'm doing my best here. Don't you see?
But you're the guide guy, right? Do your job, come on!
Sniped. Take away the guide, I am just an ordinary guy. I need time to research as well, not to mention I was out of town for a few days.
You're just lazy and a whale. All whale can do it. What do you mean? Why don't you go ask the top 100 people how they do it?
What's going on YouTube? My name is Simon Sniped and welcome to the channel. In this season's Danger Close guide, we're going to learn how to deal with the two new bosses, the Tyrant Sword and Tyrant Armor. So put on your seatbelts, grab on tight, and let's get into it. Like the usual guides, I'll first go through the boss mechanics, units and ship recommendations, the strategy, and finally a complete run for each boss at the end. However, this time we're trying something a little bit different. I'll also be commentating the runs at the end so you know what's going on behind the actions in the run. Hopefully you can understand the choices made so you can also modify your attempts to feed your own team. The first boss we'll be dissecting today will be the Tyrant Armor. Tyrant Armor is a defender class boss that spawns flying ants at intervals to fight for it. It generally has two active skills you should look out for. The special skill represented by the light blue bar is a skill which wraps itself in blue energy and explodes, pushing anyone in melee range slightly back and damage them in the process. The second skill you need to watch out for is the ultimate skill, which is represented by the purple bar. When this bar is full, the boss will rush into the middle of the field, does a screen-wide AoE, and usually ends up near or on top of your range DPS. The boss also does a hit check at 75% health and one more time when it reaches the final HP bar. This can be cancelled by raining the boss with hits, and the damage per hit doesn't really matter that much. Failure to do so will trigger a skill that does a significant amount of damage. For this boss, there are no must-have units per se, like Solicitatio, and there's generally two strategies you can use to beat the boss. Similar to moderator type bosses, you can either aim to kill the boss around 1 minute or burst it down after it casts its ultimate skill for the first time. For strategy A, we will aim to kill the boss under 1 minute. You'll need Chifuyu that can survive for the entire minute, Harim for skill haste and to keep Chifuyu alive. You will need DPS with high anti-defender and anti-ground damage, damage enhancers like Doma, Tarask, Shinja, Hilde, etc., and debuffers that creates a super nuke phase for a few seconds like Soyun. The specific deployment sequence I'd recommend is Chifuyu into Rifleman to Ifrit, Harim, Shinja, Tarask, and finally Assault Trooper. Redeploy Chifuyu if she dies right before the hit check. If not, time your Soyun and New Detroit or Razangriff second skill for the nuke to Kingdom Come. Rolling in the background right now are the gears used to execute this strategy. It is not mine, and I'd like to give all the credit to DaeHyun and Vo for sharing the account and footage. This strategy has very little space for compromise and it requires both the gears and RNG to work. So feel free to switch to strategy B if it still doesn't work for you by the coming week. Moving on to strategy B, and also like the moderator type bosses, we are aiming to initiate the burst phase after the boss moves to the center. You want to redeploy your entire team again on the left side and you should be fine. Since the boss doesn't have any special mechanics other than the hit check, if you fail to clear, just swap to a higher attack speed DPS such as Rifleman, Assault Trooper or Kim So-bin. In this video, I'll be using Awakened Soyun as part of a trial and error. You can definitely swap her out for Kim So-bin and achieve similar if not better results. As for gears, you basically want Chifuyu to have your tankiest set and as much anti-defender and anti-ground DPS sets on your DPS. Other than that, you don't necessarily need maxed skill haste gears as well. As for ships, Enterprise and New Detroit and Razangriff are all great choices. The deployment strategy is simple. drop your tank and DPS early in the fight, then Young Harim to keep the tank alive. You do not want to overcommit your deployment resources until the boss moves to the middle. Once he does, just drop another front line and then the same rotation for your DPS once again. Tyrant Armor is a really super simple fight, with no special debuffs or clear conditions other than the DPS and the hit check. You can definitely do this. Here's what I also know you can definitely do as well. If the guide is of any help to you, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so that I can notify you when new videos come out. I have to confess that Tyrant Armor was actually the easier one of the two, especially this season, and here's why. Tyrant Sword is a striker class boss that also summons ants at intervals to attack you. However, the boss has more mechanics to take note of compared to its counterpart. To make it easier to understand, I'll go through them one by one and compile it in a bullet point list. The first thing you should know is that Tyrant Sword will keep moving towards you if there are no units in melee range. When the special skill activates, the boss slams his sword in front of him with a fixed range, dealing AoE damage and refreshes if it kills anything. The boss's ultimate skill is a massive blast of damage towards the direction that it's facing. You have to distract it in order to avoid a team wipe. And finally, Tyrant Sword's unique mechanic where it summons a sword on the furthest left of the screen and pulls everything towards the boss, dealing damage in the process. If your units are behind the boss when this happens, it will be pushed to the far right end of the screen instead. Unfortunately for this boss, I wasn't able to devise a strategy for a speed kill, so we're only going to aim to kill the boss in the time that you are able to. These are the units that you almost cannot do without: Ludmilla, Sigma, Karen Wong, Xiaolin, and Jushiyun. I understand that Ludmilla is a battle pass unit and that she's not available on any banners yet. Sadly, I have not been able to find a replacement for her at this point, as she's the only flying sniper that is not affected by the boss's pull. As we have different timelines compared to Korea and Taiwan servers, we're stuck in this tough situation. If anyone who is watching this video has any suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. The remaining 3 slots in the team should be either Shieldman, Ingrid, Twins, Veronica, or anything else that has low DP cost, especially if your Sigma does not have 72% skill haste. The strategy is simple in theory but quite challenging to implement. You'll need to drop your Sigma, Ludmilla, Karin, and Xiaolin in any order that you're comfortable with, and a melee unit in between those to keep the boss and ants occupied, so that they don't start shooting your snipers. Other than that, here are a few key objectives that you want to achieve in order to clear this fight. Number 1. Keep a melee unit at the front so the boss and ants doesn't start killing your snipers. Number 2. To negate and counter the boss's first pull attempt when his HP drops to about 75%. Number 3. You want to face the boss away from your team the instant the ultimate bar is full. Number 4. iframe through the second pull by manually triggering ultimate animation. And number 5 is basically a deployment priority. You want to keep Sigma up as your top priority, maintain frontline, and finally moving on to DPS, in this order. The most important gear is to have 72% skill haste on Sigma. The faster she triggers her ultimate, the faster you can capitalize on roll damage advantage and a free tank at the front. Then you want your best DPS gears such as T6 CDR on Ludmilla and T6 Maze attack speed on Karen Wong. Every other gear should be HP sets or Hummingbird Gorgeous combinations. In the event that you don't have the previously mentioned T6 Maze sets, anything that has high anti-ground or anti-striker stat would work very well. As for ships, you want either Enterprise or Kami Izumi for more DPS and consistency. Overall, that's all you need to know about these bosses. It's a new one and it's gonna take some time to get used to, but hey, it's a breath of fresh air, and it's pretty fun to play, to be honest. Coming up next are the footages for the runs for each of these strategies. Make sure to check them out if you wish to know in further detail how the run is played out.
Alright, so for the sub 2 minute fight, it's actually pretty simple. All you need to do is just keep dumping whatever units you can. So we're going to start off with Chifuyu, and then Rifleman and Ifrit at the same time. You want to stack your DPS on the spot as soon as possible, and then after that drop Shinja for a buff because I think the Chifuyu can tank a bit longer. Harim next is so that she can give the shield and also start to charge up her ultimate skill for the attack buff during the ultimate skill. And then we're going to drop a Taras to further reduce the defense of the boss. We have a little bit of time. We're going to drop Assault Trooper next before we stack the Soyun and ship skill. Okay, we're going to save all the ultimates, make sure to not drop them all. Okay, now we're going to drop the ship skill, we're going to drop Soyun next, reduce the defenses. But then now we're going to trigger the ultimate skill of Harim and then trigger everything else. This is like the initial, the only burst phase you ever need. So watch this. Look at the boss's HP drop. Right? And then when it reaches the final HP bar, you're going to do another hit check, which is like a slight delay. Now if Chifuyu dies, you want to redeploy Chifuyu again if it's necessary. If not, you can just wait and just kill the boss. So for the Tyrant Armor fight, we're going to take it a little bit easy. We're going to first drop a DPS and a tank, and then we're trying to keep Awakened Hilde up and then save as much deployment resources as we can. So we're going to drop Soyun at the back. And then give it a bit of time. We're going to drop Awakened Hilde next. Just to be safe, you know, giving things a bit of shield and then add some Validate Absorption right in there. So next we're just going to drop Harim. So to give some cooldown reduction, skill haste to the entire team, so Soyun can do a bit more damage, Hilde can do skill a little bit more quicker, and also keep things alive, right? At the same time, you can start dropping your DPS, such as Rifleman, the cheap ones, and then you don't want to drop your Chifuyu so early, because you don't need 2 tanks at the very front. So you just drop whatever you can. Save your ultimates, because you want to actually burst it before the boss actually does his ultimate skill. So you drop Soyun, I activate the ship skill, now I activate Harim skill, and then I keep the other ultimate until now. So then the boss starts the hit check actually, and all you need to do is basically have things that does a lot of hits. So Soyun is a very good choice because she summons machine guns, and every single machine gun is another valid hit. So then now the boss charges to the middle, right? Fortunately, my Hilde is alive, so I don't have to redeploy her again. Now just keep dropping whatever DPS and debuff rotation back on the left side. So Harim comes again. I drop Chifuyu just in case Hilde is at the back and it's dead. Well, she is gonna die now. So as you realize as well, there's this debuff stack that is on the melee target. Right now, Chifuyu is about to start stacking up some.
Is your brain on vacation?
So at this point onwards, it's literally just dump your DPS on the left side, trigger all your ultimate skills, time it properly, and then you can just basically just mow down the boss from here. It's very simple because there's no special skill that the boss does outside the ultimate skill where he charges forward. What you want to do is you want to kill him before he does his ultimate skill again for the second time. Easy clap. Alright, so for Tyrant Sword, it's a little bit more tricky. No, actually, it's very much trickier. You want to first drop Sigma, Karin, Ludmilla, and Xiaolin early in the game, so the first one's always going to be Sigma. You want to put it a little bit away from the maximum distance you can drop your units, then you drop Karin. And the best situation is you want to be able to trigger, you want to trigger Karin's shield so that it moves forward and it triggers the boss's skill, and then you drop your other units like Ludmilla, and you can follow up with another tank. So ideally you want the Karin shield to actually take one shot from the boss before you drop the second unit you want to start taking hits from the boss, such as in this case I'm just going to drop Shieldman right after Xiaolin and Ludmilla, so that I can time my Jushun right at the back right now, drop it, and counter. So we negate the first pull, then your DPS is quite safe. Now you have to watch out for the next thing because the ultimate bar is about to be full. You want to drop Ingrid near the end, right when it's about to trigger the ultimate skill. So now you can see that I distracted the boss. The boss is now looking towards the back. So the boss will now use the ultimate skill on the back, keeping your front DPS alive. Unfortunately, Karin died, but it's not too bad. You can always drop her again. So the problem with this run right now is that I didn't realize that Karin died when Ingrid was dropped at the front. So I actually redeployed Ludmilla instead of Karin Wong, which actually the better idea would be to drop Karin instead, because Ludmilla was actually quite safe. And then right after that, when the boss starts to turn around, you need to drop your Shieldman or Yuumi or whoever you're going to use to distract the boss as soon as possible. And then you're going to continue DPS. Now when reaching 50% HP, the boss is going to use the skill again. Ideally, you want to use Karin Wong's ultimate to iframe through this. If you cannot do that, that's okay, because Ludmilla's going to stay alive, everything else is going to die. You're just going to redeploy the whole thing. Remember, the sequence, the priority of the drop is always going to be Sigma first, a front line, which still exists at this moment because the Shieldman's behind the boss distracting it from moving forward, and then the DPS, which is Ludmilla, Karin Wong, and Xiaolin. So the last thing that we want to be worried about for this particular boss fight is the final pull, which happens near the end of the fight at about 25% of HP. He's going to pull again, and you're going to have to watch out for that. From this point onwards, basically what you want to do is to keep your DPS alive, always make sure the Sigma is there, and then keep deploying your 2 cost units at the back of the boss or on the boss in order to distract it from actually doing any damage to you or moving forward to yours. Everything from here on out is just going to be played by the ear. So the thing about Zhu Xiyun is that you don't really have the CDR, or he usually doesn't stay alive long enough to actually recharge his special skill to counter more than one ultimate, unless Zhu Xiyun is incredibly stacked in both CDR and also in resistant damage. If not, he's going to die when he walks towards the boss in about 1 to 2 shots. So it's really very important at the beginning for the very first pull to counter. After that, you just have to tank the shots, unfortunately. And as you approach the end, just keep doing the same thing, and then finally, hopefully your DPS is able to kill the boss before you run out of any deployment resources or anything bad happens to you. Remember to always use Ingrid or anybody else that's 2 cost to distract the boss when the ultimate skill bar is almost full, because when he looks towards your ship, Sigma and your DPS is going to die. Every single DPS in this fight is going to cost a lot, because snipers averagely cost 4 deployment to drop, and Sigma herself actually costs 4 unless you give her a leader as well. And that's about it for this fight.